video, we'll go over how to import a dealer list and then assign the closest zip codes to that dealer as a territory. You'll find that we just have to export a couple lists and re-import a couple times, and then we're good to go. So the first thing I'm going to do in Map Business Online is I'm going to turn on my zip5 code layer, just because I'm going to be needing that when we create territories. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to my data window. That's this thing that looks like a calendar at the top. And from this pull down list, I'm going to choose zip codes. These are all the boundary zip codes in the United States. First thing I'll do is export this list to my desktop. Next, I'm going to pull in my dealer list through this plot data on map button. I'm going to just browse to my location of my saved file, and I'm going to use one called dealers. The import wizard will just walk you through, and you just want to make sure that the address information matches up correctly. And it does. We'll just go ahead and proceed. I'm going to leave my ID field blank, and we'll just click plot. And with the 12-month subscription, you could plot up to 100,000 points per map. So now my data window has popped up, and I'm looking at the dealer's data set, and I'm going to make that, I'm going to just give them a symbol of a building, just so I know maybe what they are. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to re-import that zip code list that I previously exported so that I can pull them in as a point layer. I'm going to do that so that we can assign information to that zip code layer through our market analysis tool. So next I'm going to click on plot data on map once again, and I'm going to browse to my desktop where I saved that exported zip code file. This will just take a minute to do so. All I really care about is the zip codes. I'm going to leave these other fields as none. We could leave them filled in, but I only care about zip codes, so I'm just going to leave that field. For the name, so this name field is what appears when we click on one of the points. So I'm going to just identify it as a zip5 code. The next thing we're going to do once these points come in is I'm going to turn off the zip code layer, just because the map will get a little overwhelmed with points. And you'll see that I have my data window that popped up again. I could choose to make these small if I wanted to, or I could change the color. But in this case, I'm just going to turn them off altogether. Just because I'm turning them off doesn't mean they're not still there. I'm still going to use the information that was brought in through that layer. So next, I'm going to use my market analysis tool, and this market analysis tool is what we're going to use for a feature called distance to store, so that we can identify the zip codes and their distance to one of the dealer locations. I'm going to choose the second one down that says find nearest store or pickup location. We'll click next. From this next page, we decide which spreadsheet we'd like to add this distance to store column to. So I want to add it to my zip code data set that I just brought in. We'll leave dealers. We could set a maximum distance if we wanted to, but in this case I'll just choose no max distance. This right here is the name of the column, essentially the header. A lot of times you could just leave it as store, but in this case let me change it to territory, because we're assigning essentially a store to each of those zip codes. So now we have our zip codes layer, and we have assigned a territory, which is the closest dealer location, and then we have a column that's their distance to that location. What I'm going to do next is export this data set again so that I can later re-import it as a territory file. So I'm going to click on this button, and I'm going to rename it this time. I'll just throw on territory at the end. And now this is where we bring in our territory file that we just created. I'm going to choose the next button down the list called Create Territories. And we're going to browse to that location. choose zip code territory. Once again, all I care about is zip code, so I'm going to leave the other fields as none. On the next screen is where we're going to decide what the territory name is. The program most likely is automatically going to pick up my header of territory, but if it doesn't, then I'm going to help it out. Okay, so territory name, it picked up on when I changed the store to territory, it was able to pick that up. If you left it as store from that market analysis page, then we would just have to choose store from this pull down list. We'll leave it as zip codes because that's how we're creating our territories, and we'll click create. Now this will create territories for all across the United States based on that center point of that dealer locations. We'll click done, and now we have territories along with our territories data set from our data window. And if I start zooming in, we'll get to see this pretty neat information here. So we can see all of the zip codes, the closest zip codes to that center point location. We can tidy up the map if you wanted to. You can go into your territories layer and you can change the look and feel of your map. You could change the background. You could go into general and hide internal boundaries if you wanted to make that kind of seamless. And you could also play around with transparency if you wanted to make those see-through as well. If you have any questions, let us know. We're here to help. Thanks and have a great day.